Before we begin our journey into the blue, I want you to find a position of absolute comfort. Whether you are lying on your back or curled on your side, allow the weight of your body to settle into the surface beneath you. Feel the mattress rising up to meet you, supporting every inch of your frame. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs slowly, and then let it out with a long, soft sigh. With each exhale, imagine you are releasing the tension of the day, the tightness in your jaw, the weight in your shoulders, the busy thoughts in your mind. Visualize a soft, warm light beginning at the tips of your toes and slowly moving upward. It softens your feet, relaxes your calves, and loosens your knees. It moves through your thighs and into your hips, creating a sensation of profound heaviness. This warmth travels up your spine, uncurling every vertebra, spreading across your chest, and flowing down your arms to the very ends of your fingers. Finally, it reaches your neck and face, smoothing your brow and letting your eyes rest deeply in their sockets. You are heavy. You are still. You are ready to drift. Imagine now that you are floating on the surface of a tropical sea. The water is perfectly still, a vast mirror of turquoise and sapphire, reflecting a sky filled with soft, violet-edged clouds. The air is a balmy 80 degrees, smelling faintly of salt and sun-warmed cedar. The water cradles you, its buoyancy making you feel weightless, as if the boundary between your body and the ocean is beginning to dissolve. Slowly, gently, you begin to sink beneath the surface. There is no splash, no cold shock, only a smooth transition into a world of liquid velvet. As you descend, the chaotic sounds of the world above fade away, replaced by a deep, rhythmic thudding, the heartbeat of the ocean. As we settle into this hidden world, it's worth noting just how rare and precious this place is. You are entering a coral reef, an environment that covers less than 1% of the entire ocean floor, yet somehow manages to support over 25% of all marine life on our planet. It is an astonishing concentration of existence, a bustling metropolis of biological diversity held together by a framework of living stone. You find yourself hovering just above a garden of extraordinary shapes. The water here is exceptionally clear. In these tropical regions, light can penetrate deep into what scientists call the euphotic zone, reaching depths of up to 200 meters or 660 feet. This light is the lifeblood of the reef, filtering through the water in shimmering, dancing curtains of gold and emerald. Reach out your mind and touch the texture of the reef. Beneath you, the structure feels like ancient, weathered limestone. These are scleractinian corals, often called stony corals. They are the master architects of the sea, secretively building their own homes by secreting calcium carbonate. What's fascinating is that while they look like plants or rocks, they are actually colonies of tiny animals called polyps. A single coral polyp is a delicate, translucent creature, often no larger than the head of a pin, though some species, like the solitary mushroom coral, can grow several inches wide. These polyps are members of the phylum Cyanidarea, making them close cousins to the drifting jellyfish and the stationary sea anemone. You can see them now, their tiny, feathery tentacles waving slowly in the current like miniature flowers blooming in slow motion. As you drift closer, you might notice a subtle, vibrant glow within the tissues of the coral. This is the result of a remarkable partnership. Inside, the clear skin of the polyps live millions of microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. This is a mutualistic relationship, a perfect pact of survival. The coral provides the algae with a protected environment and the compounds they need for photosynthesis. In return, The zooxanthellae produce oxygen and help the coral remove wastes. Most importantly, these tiny internal gardens provide the coral with up to 90% of its energy. It is a world powered by the sun, even beneath the waves. The temperature here is a constant, womb-like embrace. Most tropical reefs require water that stays between 73 and 84 degrees Fahrenheit to thrive. You can feel this warmth against your skin, a gentle thermal blanket that never fluctuates. It is the perfect temperature for growth, for rest, and for the slow, methodical pace of reef life. Listen closely to the environment. While the ocean is often called the silent world, it is actually filled with a complex symphony of sound. Because water is much denser than air, sound travels 4 times faster down here and much further. If you listen with your inner ear, you can hear a soft, constant crackling, like the sound of distant popcorn or the static of a radio. This sound is partly created by the grazers of the reef. Nearby, a school of parrotfish drifts past. They are vibrant, painted in shades of electric blue, magenta, and lime green. You can hear the distinct crunch, crunch, crunch as they use their beak-like teeth to scrape algae off the coral. Here is something most people don't know. As the parrotfish eats, it inadvertently consumes the calcium carbonate of the reef. After digesting the algae, it excretes the coral as fine, white sand. A single large parrotfish can produce up to 200 pounds of sand every single year. Most of the soft, white beaches you've ever walked on were likely created by the quiet, diligent work of these fish over thousands of years. The scale of what you are witnessing is hard to grasp. To your left, the reef stretches out into the blue haze of the distance. This could be part of the Great Barrier Reef, the largest living structure on Earth. It spans over 1,400 miles, roughly 2,300 kilometers along the coast of Australia. It is so vast that it can be seen from outer space. A bright blue-green scar of life against the dark indigo of the deep ocean. But even this massive structure began with a single polyp. The timescales here are vastly different from our own. While some branching corals can grow several inches in a year, the massive Porites corals, those that look like giant, lobed brains or smooth boulders, grow at a glacial pace. They might add only 0.3 to 2 centimeters to their height in an entire year. Some of the larger colonies you see around you have been growing steadily since before the Middle Ages, slowly accreting their limestone skeletons millimeter by millimeter, century after century. The water moves you now, a gentle surge that pushes you inches forward, then inches back. This is the surge, the underwater ghost of the waves passing far above. It is a rhythmic, oscillating motion, like the breathing of the ocean itself. You find yourself syncing your own breath to this movement. Inhale as the water pushes you toward the reef. Exhale as it pulls you back toward the blue. As you look around, the sheer variety of textures is hypnotic. There are sea fans, or gorgonians, which look like intricate lace doilies made of flexible protein called gorgonin. They pulse with the current, acting as living nets to catch microscopic plankton. There are staghorn corals that reach upward like the frost-covered branches of a winter forest, and table corals that spread out in wide, flat discs to catch as much sunlight as possible for their internal algae. The colors are not the garish neon lights of a city, but the soft, filtered hues of a cathedral. Because the water absorbs different wavelengths of light at different depths, the reds and oranges are the first to fade. Deep here, the world is a masterpiece of blues, violets, and soft, glowing greens. It is a spectrum that invites the eyes to relax, removing the strain of harsh contrast. You are now fully settled into this liquid landscape. The weight of your body is entirely forgotten, replaced by the sensation of being part of the water itself. You are not a visitor. You are a witness to a process that has been unfolding for nearly 500 million years in various forms. The reef is a place of infinite patience. It does not hurry, it does not strive. It simply exists, growing toward the light, filtering the water, and providing a home for the millions of creatures that dart in and out of its shadows. You see a small goby resting on a coral head, its tiny fins keeping it anchored against the current. You see a sea star, its 5 arms tucked into a crevice, moving so slowly that its motion is invisible to the human eye. Everything here is interconnected. The sand, the stone, the algae, the fish, they are all threads in a single, magnificent tapestry. And you, drifting here in the warm, protective embrace of the current, are a thread as well. As we prepare to explore the deeper mysteries of this hidden world in the moments to come, let yourself sink even further into the stillness. The sun is high above the water, casting long, shimmering ribbons of light that reach down to touch the sand. The crackle of the reef is a lullaby. The warmth of the water is a cocoon. You are safe. You are drifting. You are becoming one with the slow, ancient rhythm of the coral reef. There is nothing you need to do, and nowhere else you need to be. Just breathe, and let the tide of relaxation pull you deeper into the blue. Consider the weight of the water above you as a gentle, liquid blanket, pressing softly against your skin with a comforting uniformity. You are now hovering in a space that has fascinated the human imagination for millennia. A realm that was once as mysterious as the far side of the moon. To understand the coral reef is to understand a history of slow realization, a gradual uncovering of a world that operates on a different clock than our own. For the ancient seafaring cultures of the Mediterranean, this world was a paradox. The word coral finds its roots in the ancient Greek times corallion asterisk, a name originally used to describe the precious red coral found in their waters. They viewed it as a lithodendron, literally, a stone tree. It possessed the rigid, unyielding hardness of a mineral, yet it branched and spread with the organic grace of a willow. They believed it was a plant that turned to stone the moment it was touched by the air. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? The idea of a living thing so tethered to the sea that it petrifies when separated from its source. Notice how the light plays across the calcium structures around you. Scientists discovered in the mid-18th century that these stone trees were far more complex than the ancients imagined. In 1753, a French biologist named Jean-André Peysonnel made a radical claim that shocked the scientific community of his time. He spent countless hours observing the tiny, flowering shapes on the surface of the coral, noticing how they moved and reacted to the presence of food. He was the first to prove that corals are not plants, but colonies of animals. He called them insects of the sea, though we now know them as polyps. Imagine the patience required to watch these microscopic movements in a time before modern magnifying lenses, sitting on a quiet coastline, waiting for the reef to reveal its true nature. At this very moment, you are floating amidst the class times Anthozoa asterisk. This scientific name is a poetic relic of that early confusion. It literally translates from Greek as flower animals. It is a fitting description. As you observe the polyps extending their translucent tentacles, they look like a field of wildflowers swaying in a breeze. Yet each petal is a sensory organ, and each stem is a conduit for life. As we move through this history of discovery, picture the times HMS Endeavour times in the year 1770, Captain James Cook and his crew were navigating the uncharted waters off the coast of Australia when they encountered the Great Barrier Reef. They described it not as a biological wonder, but as a wall of coral rock rising almost perpendicular out of the unfathomable ocean. It was a tectonic scale of architecture that defied their understanding of how the natural world was built. They were the first Europeans to grapple with the sheer enormity of a structure created entirely by tiny, soft-bodied organisms. This wall they encountered is actually a massive accumulation of skeletons, a city built upon the foundations of its ancestors, layer by microscopic layer. What's happening now is a continuation of a process that Charles Darwin, the famous naturalist, spent years trying to decode. In 1842, Darwin published a seminal work titled Times the Structure and Distribution of Coral Reefs**. While sailing on the Times HMS Beagle**, he looked at atolls, those ring-shaped coral islands with a lagoon in the center, and puzzled over how they formed in the middle of the deep ocean. He correctly theorized that these reefs began as fringes around volcanic islands. As the islands slowly subsided and sank back into the crust of the earth over millions of years, the coral continued to grow upward toward the light, maintaining its position near the surface. The island vanishes, but the life remains, a circular monument to a landmass that no longer exists. Deep within the texture of the reef, you can see the results of this eternal upward climb. Consider the way the reef captures the very essence of the ocean's chemistry. Corals are masters of mineralogy. They extract calcium and carbonate ions directly from the seawater to build their skeletons. Scientists have found that the rate of this accretion is incredibly slow. A massive colony might only add the thickness of a fingernail to its height each year. Yet, through the collective effort of billions of polyps over thousands of years, they create the only biological structures visible from space. The reef is a living archive. Some massive coral colonies, particularly those in the genus Times Porites**, are known to live for over 1,000 years. These boulder corals can grow to be several meters in diameter. Within their skeletons, they lock away a record of the ocean's temperature and chemistry from centuries ago, much like the rings of an ancient redwood tree. By drilling small, harmless cores into these giants, researchers can read the history of the planet's climate, year by year, going back to the time of the Crusades. You are resting near a witness to human history, a silent observer that has remained steadfast while empires rose and fell. As you drift, notice the silence, or what we once perceived as silence. In 1953, the world's perception of this environment was transformed by Jacques Cousteau's documentary film, *The Silent World**. It was the first time the general public saw the reef in its full, vibrant color, rather than in the grainy black and white of early photography. Cousteau's work helped us realize that the reef is not just a geological formation, but a sensory explosion. However, we've since learned that his title was a bit of a misnomer. The reef is actually a cacophony of sound. At this very moment, the snapping shrimp are creating a constant, rhythmic crackle. These tiny crustaceans, often less than 2 inches long, possess a specialized claw that snaps shut with such speed it creates a cavitation bubble. When that bubble collapses, it produces a sound louder than a jet engine for a fraction of a second, along with a tiny flash of light. To our ears, it sounds like the gentle pitter-patter of rain on a tin roof, or the sizzling of embers in a hearth. This acoustic signature is vital. It's a beacon that helps young fish find their way back to the safety of the reef after developing in the open ocean. Notice the density of life here. While coral reefs occupy less than 0.1% of the world's ocean surface, they are essential for the survival of over 4,000 species of fish. This concentration of life is what led scientists to call them the rainforests of the sea. This comparison was first popularized in the late 20th century, as we began to understand the staggering biodiversity of places, like the Coral Triangle. This region in the Western Pacific is the global center of marine diversity, containing 76% of all known coral species on Earth. Imagine a space where every crack, every crevice, and every surface is a specialized habitat, a niche occupied by a creature that has evolved specifically for that exact spot. But the reef's history goes even deeper than the sunlit shallows. What is often forgotten is the world of deep-sea corals, or cold water corals. Scientists have discovered these resilient organisms at staggering depths of up to 6,000 meters, roughly 20,000 feet below the surface. Down there, in the absolute darkness and near freezing temperatures, corals thrive without the help of photosynthetic algae. They don't need the sun. They rely entirely on catching organic particles that drift down from above, a process often called marine snow. These deep water forests can be even older than their tropical cousins, with some individual colonies estimated to be over 4,000 years old, making them some of the oldest living animals on the planet. Consider the concept of the holobiont. This is a relatively new scientific term used to describe the coral not as a single animal, but as a complex ecosystem in and of itself. A single coral head is a partnership of the animal host, the symbiotic algae, and a vast community of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live within the coral's mucus layer. This microbial shield is the reef's first line of defense, a microscopic army that helps maintain the health of the colony. It is a perfect model of cooperation, where the line between individual and community becomes beautifully blurred. As you linger in this historical perspective, feel the coolness of the current as it brushes past you. It is a slow, steady flow that has been circulating the globe's oceans for eons. The water you are feeling now might have been part of an Antarctic glacier 1,000 years ago, or it might have evaporated from the surface of the Atlantic before traveling through the deep currents to reach this tropical sanctuary. The reef is a testament to the power of small things. It is a reminder that beauty and strength can be built through the quiet, persistent accumulation of tiny efforts. Every polyp, every grain of calcium, every century of growth contributes to this cathedral of the sea. You are part of this continuum now. The history of the reef is a history of endurance, a story of life finding a way to flourish in the blue heart of the world. Allow yourself to settle deeper into the soft silt of the narrative. The stories of the explorers, the biologists, and the ancient mariners are all just echoes in the water now. All that remains is the gentle surge, the warmth of the tropical sea, and the steady, rhythmic breathing of the living stone. You are resting in a place that has seen the passage of ages, and like the reef itself, you are safe, stable, and deeply at peace. Picture this. The water surrounding you isn't just a simple liquid. It has a thickness to it, a subtle viscosity that feels like the finest silk sliding against your skin. As you float here, you are actually suspended within a giant, living laboratory. At this very moment, your body is being cradled by a solution that is remarkably similar to your own internal chemistry. Seawater contains a concentration of salts and minerals, specifically sodium, chloride, magnesium, and calcium that mirrors the composition of human blood plasma. You are, in a very real sense, returning to a cradle of familiar elements. Observe the way the sunlight filtered through the moving surface above, creates a shifting grid of brightness on the seabed. This effect, known as caustic light, acts like a natural magnifying glass, focusing the sun's energy into dancing ribbons of gold. Beneath these ribbons, the corals are performing a feat of chemistry that would put any modern refinery to shame. What's truly striking is that these organisms are essentially solar-powered. The tiny algae living inside them, the zooxanthellae, are like millions of microscopic solar panels. Through the process of photosynthesis, they convert the sun's rays into high-energy sugars. In fact, these internal gardens are so efficient that they can produce up to 3 times more oxygen than they consume, contributing significantly to the very air you breathe back on the surface. If you were to reach out and gently graze the surface of a boulder coral, you wouldn't just feel the hard calcium skeleton. You would feel a thin, slippery layer of biological silk. This is coral mucus. To understand its function, think of it as a multi-purpose skin cream or a high-tech moisturizing mask. This substance is incredibly complex, composed of roughly 40% lipids or fats, along with carbohydrates and proteins. It serves as a protective barrier, a sort of biological sunscreen that filters out harmful ultraviolet radiation while trapping 90% of the organic particles that drift past. Scientists have found that this coral snot, as it's affectionately called, is a cornerstone of the reef's nutrition. It eventually sloughs off and carries nutrients into the surrounding water, feeding a host of smaller organisms. It is a cycle of nourishment that ensures nothing in this environment goes to waste. Notice how some of the corals seem to possess an inner glow, a soft radiance that appears electric. This is not a reflection of the sun, but a phenomenon called biofluorescence. At this depth, corals produce specific proteins, the most famous being the green fluorescent protein, or GFP, which absorb the high-energy blue light of the deep ocean and re-emit it as longer wavelengths of vibrant green, orange, or red. Think of it like those glow-in-the-dark stickers you might have had on your ceiling as a child. This light isn't for show. It acts as a protective shield for the coral's delicate internal algae, transforming harsh light into a more manageable glow that promotes healthy growth. Lower your consciousness into the stillness and look toward the sandy patches between the coral heads. You might see a giant clam, known scientifically as Time's Tridacna gigas asterisk. These creatures are like living underwater bathtubs, sometimes reaching over 4 feet in length and weighing more than 440 pounds. Their scalloped shells are lined with a fleshy, iridescent mantle that looks like a piece of stained glass. What's unusual is that, like the corals, these clams also host symbiotic algae in their tissues. They spend their 100-year lives basking in the sunlit shallows, their heavy shells anchored by sheer weight, acting as a steady, unmoving anchor in the shifting currents. At this very moment, look at the intricate patterns of the brain coral, or Time's Diploria labyrinthiformis asterisk. Its surface is covered in deep, winding grooves that look exactly like the folds of a human brain or a complex, prehistoric labyrinth. These grooves serve a very practical purpose. They increase the surface area of the colony, allowing more polyps to extend their tentacles into the water to feed. These massive colonies grow at a rate of roughly 3.5 millimeters per year, about the thickness of 2 pennies stacked together. The colony you see before you, several feet across, has been slowly, methodically carving its path through time for over 2 centuries, a testament to the power of patient, incremental progress. Consider the Christmas tree worms that dot the surface of the stony corals. scientifically known as times, Spirobranchus giganteus asterisk. These tiny animals look like festive, miniature pine trees, no larger than an inch or two in height. They aren't plants at all, but sedentary polycate worms. Each tree is actually a pair of spiral branchial crowns used for both breathing and catching microscopic plankton. If a shadow passes over them, they disappear in the blink of an eye, retracting into their calcium tubes with lightning speed, only to slowly re-emerge like a flower blooming in a time-lapse video once the water is still again. The reef operates much like a massive, organic city, and every city needs a way to manage its atmosphere. Notice the vast meadows of seagrass waving in the distance. These grasses, such as Times Thalassia testudinum asterisk, are often called the lungs of the sea. They are one of the most effective carbon sinks on the planet. A single acre of seagrass can store more than twice as much carbon as an acre of tropical rainforest. They work in tandem with the reef, filtering the water and trapping sediments, acting like a giant set of kidneys that keep the environment clear and healthy for the corals to thrive. Beneath the surface of the skin of the ocean, the pH level stays remarkably stable, usually hovering around 8.1. This slight alkalinity is crucial for the chemistry of calcification. If the water were a cup of tea, the calcium and carbonate ions would be the sugar dissolved within it. The corals use a specific enzyme called carbonic anhydrase to pull that sugar out of the solution and turn it into solid rock. It is a masterpiece of molecular engineering, performed without tools, without noise, and without effort. Picture the reef as a living battery. It takes the raw energy of the sun and the minerals of the water and stores them in its vast, stony architecture. This energy doesn't just stay in the coral, it flows through the entire ecosystem. Consider the marine snow, the constant, gentle drizzle of organic flakes that drifts down from the upper layers of the ocean. This snow consists of bits of plankton, shells, and organic matter, looking like a slow-motion blizzard in a crystal ball. It provides a steady supply of nitrogen and phosphorus to the creatures of the reef floor, ensuring that even in the shadows, life is fed and sustained. What's happening now is a demonstration of the island mass effect. This is a scientific phenomenon where the presence of a reef or island actually causes the surrounding ocean to become more productive. The physical structure of the reef disrupts the flow of deep ocean currents, forcing nutrient-rich water from the dark depths up into the sunlit surface. It's as if the reef is reaching down into the pantry of the deep and pulling up a feast for everyone to share. This upward movement of water, or upwelling, creates a localized burst of life that can be seen from miles away. Permit your mind to settle into the scale of these interconnections. The reef is not a collection of separate beings, but a single, breathing entity. The parrotfish that creates the sand, the worm that filters the water, the clam that anchors the seabed, and the coral that builds the foundation, they are all working in a silent, unconscious choreography. The temperature of the water remains a perfect, steady warmth. In this environment, there is no winter, no biting cold, no sudden frost. There is only the eternal summer of the tropics. This stability allows for a level of specialization that is found nowhere else on Earth. Some species of tiny, cleaner wrasse spend their entire lives at a single station on the reef, a specific coral head where larger fish come to have parasites gently removed. It is a biological spa, a place where the normal rules of competition are suspended in favor of mutual benefit. Give your weight over to the gentle rise and fall of the surge. You are being breathed by the ocean. Each movement of the water is a soft massage, a rhythmic pulse that clears away the old and brings in the fresh, oxygenated water of the open sea. There is a profound sense of order here, a logic that has been refined over millions of years. Every grain of sand has a purpose. Every polyp has a role. As you linger here, the complexity of the reef becomes a source of deep comfort. You don't have to understand the chemistry of the calcification or the physics of the light to benefit from it. You only have to exist within it. The reef is doing the work of living, growing, and sustaining, and you are simply the observer, drifting in the warmth, safe in the knowledge that this ancient system knows exactly how to take care of itself. The stone trees will continue their slow climb, the solar panels will continue to catch the light, and the marine snow will continue its soft, silent descent. Everything is as it should be. Everything is in its right place. Imagine the lineage of the water that currently surrounds you, a fluid heritage that has been circulating through the veins of the planet for billions of years. As you hover in this weightless embrace, you might feel a sense of profound kinship with the reef. This isn't merely a coincidence of biology. It is a deep, structural connection. Consider the very architecture of your own body. For decades, surgeons have used pieces of certain corals, specifically the genus Times Goniopora asterisk, as a natural material for bone grafts in human patients. The pore structure of this coral so closely mimics that of human bone that our own blood vessels and cells can grow into it, eventually replacing the coral with our own living tissue. You are, in a literal sense, made of the same geometric logic as the reef. Notice the quiet industry occurring within the crevices of the coral heads. While we often think of these structures as static, they are centers of intense biological activity that directly impacts your life on land. For instance, much of the medical world's progress in treating complex illnesses has come from the chemical warfare of sedentary reef creatures. Because sponges and corals cannot run away, they have evolved a sophisticated array of chemical compounds to protect themselves. Scientists discovered a sea sponge in the Caribbean, Cryptotethia crypta*, which produced compounds that became the blueprint for RSC, a vital medication used in the treatment of leukemia, and vidarabine, an antiviral drug. The reef is not just a garden, it is the world's most ancient and effective pharmacy, holding the keys to human health within its soft, translucent tissues. What's happening now is a demonstration of the reef's role as a silent guardian of the coastline. As you watch the gentle surge of the water, you are seeing a fraction of the energy that these structures handle every day. At this very moment, the reef is acting as a massive, self-repairing breakwater. Research has shown that a healthy coral reef can dissipate up to 97% of the energy from incoming waves. Without this barrier, the beaches you love and the coastal towns where millions of people sleep would be subject to the constant, unbuffered power of the open ocean. The reef stands as a soft but resilient shield, absorbing the momentum of the sea so that the land can remain still. Observe the giant barrel sponge, *Cesta spongia muta*, nearby. It looks like a great, weathered urn carved from mahogany-colored stone, some reaching over 6 feet in height. These organisms are the premier water purifiers of the ocean. A single large sponge can filter up to 5,000 liters of seawater, roughly 1,300 gallons in a single day, for every kilogram of its body weight. This is equivalent to the volume of a standard backyard swimming pool being processed by one silent, stationary animal every 24 hours. By doing this, the sponges are stripping the water of bacteria and organic debris, ensuring the clarity that the coral's internal algae need to catch the sun. It is a process of metabolic purification that keeps the entire ecosystem breathing. you might feel a sense of wonder at the timing of the reef. Much like the rhythms of your own sleep and waking cycles, the reef follows a celestial clock. Once a year, usually in late spring or early summer, following the cue of a specific full moon, a phenomenon occurs that looks like an underwater blizzard. This is the mass spawning of corals, particularly the Times acropora times or elkhorn species. Millions of tiny, colorful bundles are released simultaneously into the water column. This incredible synchronicity is triggered by a combination of water temperature, the length of the day, and the subtle gravitational pull of the moon. It is the largest reproductive event on the planet, a moment where the entire reef breathes its future into the currents in a single, coordinated heartbeat. At this very moment, consider the journey of a single coral larva, a planula. Though it is no larger than a grain of pepper, it possesses a sophisticated sensory system. Scientists have discovered that these larvae can actually hear the reef. They use specialized cilia to sense the vibrations and acoustic signatures of the snapping shrimp and the grunts of fish. They swim toward the sound of a healthy reef, seeking out the familiar crackle as a signal of a safe place to land. Even in the vastness of the ocean, the smallest lives find their way home by listening to the music of the stone. Deep within the branches of the Times, Percillopora Times corals, the ones that look like delicate, stony cauliflower, you might spot a tiny trapezia crab. These crabs are the ultimate housekeepers. They spend their entire lives within the coral's branches, and in return for a safe home, they provide essential maintenance. They use their small claws to clear away any sediment or smothering silt that might settle on the coral polyps. More importantly, they have been observed defending their coral from the crown of thorns. Starfish by nipping at its tube feet until it moves away. It is a domestic arrangement of perfect harmony. The crab ensures the coral can breathe, and the coral provides the crab with shelter and nutrient-rich mucus to eat. Notice the texture of the sand beneath you as it shifts in the current. If you were to look at it under a microscope, you would find it is not just ground-up rock. In many parts of the world, this star sand is composed of the delicate, sun-shaped shells of foraminifera, specifically Times Baculogipsina sphaerulata asterisk. These are single-celled organisms that build intricate calcium carbonate shells. When they complete their life cycle, their shells remain, forming the very ground upon which the reef sits. It is a humbling thought. The vast beaches and islands of the tropics are built from the remains of microscopic architects, a testament to the fact that no life is too small to contribute to the foundations of the world. Think about the way the reef serves as a vital bridge between different worlds. Often, the health of the coral is tied to the nearby mangrove forests, like those of the Times Rhizophora mangle asterisk. These trees, with their stilt-like roots submerged in the salt water, act as the nurseries of the sea. Many of the fish you see now, like the vibrantly colored snappers and grunts, spent their youth sheltered among the tangled roots of the mangroves, protected from the larger open water currents until they were strong enough to migrate to the reef. This connection reminds us that nothing in nature exists in isolation. The forest protects the fish nourish the reef, and the reef protects the forest from the waves. The historical depth of this environment is staggering. Modern scleractinian corals, the ancestors of the ones you see today, first appeared in the fossil record during the Triassic period, more than 240 million years ago. They have survived mass extinctions and shifting continents, steadily building their limestone citadels through eras of profound change. When you rest near a reef, You are resting near a lineage that predates the first dinosaurs. It is a heritage of endurance, a proof that life, when it works in cooperation, can withstand almost anything. You might feel the light changing now, as the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon. Above the water, the surface acts like a selective filter known as Snell's window. From your perspective below, the entire sky is compressed into a circular portal of light directly overhead, while the edges of your vision show the reflected underside of the sea floor. This optical phenomenon creates a sense of being in a private sanctuary, a hidden room where the ceiling is the sky and the walls are the infinite blue. As you submerge into a layer of heavier peace, let your mind drift to the global scale of what you are witnessing. The ocean's surface covers 71% of our planet, and its health is inextricably linked to the health of the reefs. They are the barometers of the world's temperature, the guardians of our shores, and the providers of oxygen and sustenance. In this moment, as you breathe in sync with the surge, you are tapping into the global life support system. The reef is a place where time slows down to the pace of a growing crystal. There is no urgency here, only the steady, methodical work of accretion and the rhythmic flow of the tide. You are a part of this bigger picture. Your rest is part of the natural cycle of the world, a time for your own housekeeping to occur, for your thoughts to settle like the fine foraminiferous shells, and for your energy to be replenished like the coral after a long day of sun. Give your weight entirely to the liquid world. Feel the warmth of the tropical sea as it insulates you from the noise of the land. You are safe in the cradle of the reef, supported by an architecture that has stood for millions of years. The music of the shrimp is your lullaby. The glow of the biofluorescent protein is your nightlight. All is well in the hidden world. All is still. All is as it should be. Yield your weight to the gentle, rhythmic sway of the current as the light above begins to soften into a deep, bruised purple. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the chemistry of the reef undergoes a silent, invisible transformation. At this very moment, you are experiencing the hydrostatic pressure of the ocean, a constant, even squeeze that acts like a full-body compression wrap. At a depth of only 10 meters, or 33 feet, the pressure is double what it is at the surface, sitting at 2 atmospheres. This pressure doesn't feel heavy. Instead, it feels like a stabilizing embrace, grounding your nervous system and telling your muscles that it is time to remain still. Observe the way the colors have shifted. Scientists discovered that the ocean acts as a massive chromatic filter. Because water molecules are denser and more cohesive than air, they absorb long wavelength light first. Red light, with its low energy, is absorbed within the first 5 meters, followed by orange and yellow. This is why, as you look around now, the world is a symphony of cyans and indigos. What's interesting is that this isn't just an optical trick, it's a biological strategy. Many reef fish have eyes that are tuned specifically to these shorter blue wavelengths, allowing them to see with incredible clarity in what looks to us like a dim, monochromatic twilight. Notice the scent of the water if you could perceive it through the liquid. There is a very specific, earthy aroma that we associate with the sea. This scent is largely caused by a compound called dimethyl sulfide, or DMS. It is produced by the corals and the microscopic algae when they are stressed by the sun or changing tides. This chemical isn't just a waste product, it's a messenger. It drifts up into the atmosphere, where it helps seed the formation of clouds above the ocean. Imagine that. The very scent of the reef below is helping to create the shade and the rain that cools the planet above. At this very moment, consider the living loom beneath you. The reef is a weave of mineral and biology. Most corals build their skeletons out of a specific form of calcium carbonate called aragonite. While aragonite has the same chemical formula as the calcite found in chalk or limestone, its crystal structure is much more dense and fibrous. This molecular arrangement allows the coral to build thin, intricate branches that are surprisingly strong, capable of withstanding the constant pressure of moving water. The reef is a masterclass in structural engineering, using the simplest of materials to create a citadel of immense complexity. Consider the cleaning crew that is just now beginning its evening shift. Look toward the sandy floor, where you might see the slow, methodical movement of a sea cucumber, perhaps the species times Holothuria edulis asterisk. These tube-shaped creatures are the vacuum cleaners of the ecosystem. They ingest vast quantities of sand, digest the organic marine snow and bacteria trapped within it, and then excrete the clean sand back onto the floor. Scientists have estimated that in a healthy reef system, sea cucumbers can process over 130 tons of sediment per year in a single square kilometer. They are the quiet janitors of the blue, ensuring that the metabolic waste of the city is constantly being cycled and purified. Deep within the pores of the coral skeletons, there is a hidden world most people never see. At this very moment, millions of endolithic algae are living inside the solid rock. These tiny plants, such as those from the genus Ostriobium asterisk, can live in the pitch-black interior of the coral skeleton by utilizing the tiny amounts of light that filter through the translucent coral tissue. During times of stress, these hidden gardens can actually share their nutrients with the coral polyps above, acting as a secret emergency pantry for the entire colony. It is a level of cooperation that exists within the very bones of the reef. Notice how the soundscape is changing as night approaches. The acoustic velocity in this water is roughly 1,500 meters per second, nearly 5 times faster than in the air. This means that every sound is crisp and immediate. The popcorn sound of the snapping shrimp is joined now by the low-frequency grunts of the damselfish and the rhythmic clicks of nocturnal squirrelfish. This acoustic environment is essential for the reef's survival. Scientists have found that the sound of a healthy reef can be heard by larvae miles away in the open ocean, acting as a biological lighthouse that guides the next generation back to the safety of the stone. At this very moment, picture the Deal vertical migration, the largest movement of biomass on the planet. As the sun disappears, trillions of tiny zooplankton that have spent the day in the dark, cold depths of the ocean begin their slow ascent toward the surface to feed. They rise like a slow-motion curtain of life. The coral polyps, sensing this arrival, begin to extend their stinging tentacles, or nematocysts, like miniature nets. This is the nighttime feast. The reef, which spent the day as a solar-powered garden, now transforms into a nocturnal hunter, capturing the energy of the deep sea and bringing it into the structure of the coral. What's happening now is a demonstration of the reef's incredible oxygen production. While we often think of forests as the lungs of the earth, much of our oxygen comes from the ocean's microscopic inhabitants. Specifically, a tiny cyanobacterium called Prochlorococcus asterisk, which is abundant in the waters around the reef, is responsible for producing 1 out of every 5 breaths you take. It is the most abundant photosynthetic organism on the planet, so small that millions can fit in a single drop of water, yet so powerful that it helps regulate the atmosphere of the entire globe. You are breathing in the labor of the invisible. Yield your mind to the fascinating partnership between the goby fish and the snapping shrimp. In the sandy patches of the reef, the shrimp, which is nearly blind, digs a burrow that provides a home for both creatures. In return, the goby sits at the entrance of the hole, acting as the eyes for the shrimp. The shrimp keeps one of its antennae in constant contact with the goby's tail. If the goby senses a subtle change in the vibration of the water, it flickers its tail, and both animals vanish into the safety of the burrow in a fraction of a second. This tactile communication is a testament to the trust and interdependency that defines the hidden world. Notice the temperature of the water once more. Seawater has a very high specific heat capacity, meaning it takes a tremendous amount of energy to change its temperature. This thermal stability is a sanctuary for your body. As the air above the water cools rapidly with the setting sun, the water around you retains the warmth of the day, acting as a massive heat reservoir. This constant 80-degree embrace is the reason the reef can maintain such a high level of metabolic activity. It is a world without the shock of the cold, a place where the life force is never extinguished by the seasons. Picture the reef as a living clock. Inside the skeleton of a times porites times coral, the polyps lay down daily growth bands. These are microscopic layers of calcium carbonate that vary in density depending on the light and temperature of that specific day. Much like the rings of a tree, these bands are a high-resolution record of the ocean's history. Scientists can look at a piece of coral and tell you exactly what the weather was like on a Tuesday afternoon 300 years ago. The reef doesn't just live in time, it records time, weaving the story of the planet into its very foundation. As you linger in this deepening twilight, permit your consciousness to settle into the microscopic scale of the reef's surface. Each polyp is surrounded by a halo of cilia, tiny, hair-like structures that beat in a coordinated wave. This movement creates a microcurrent that pulls oxygen-rich water toward the polyp's mouth and carries away metabolic byproducts. Even when the ocean is perfectly still, the reef is creating its own movement, its own flow, its own life. The reef is a place where the why of nature is always answered with a how. How does it grow? Through the patient accretion of ions. Why does it glow? To protect its internal garden. How does it survive? Through the radical cooperation of millions of individuals. You are floating within the most successful community in the history of the Earth. Entrust your presence to the velvet blue of the water. The stars are beginning to appear through the surface, shimmering in the Snell's window above you. The world above is moving into its rest, and the world below is beginning its nocturnal dance. Everything is connected by the scent of the DMS, the pulse of the current, and the steady, unyielding growth of the stone. You are safe, you are warm, you are a part of the slow, magnificent breathing of the coral sea. Let the rhythm of the cilia and the snapping of the shrimp carry you further into the heart of the stillness. The sun has now completely withdrawn its golden threads from the surface of the water, and the hidden world of the coral reef has entered its most tranquil phase. As the last of the daylight fades, the turquoise water deepens into a rich, saturated indigo, and then finally into a velvety, starlit black. At this very moment, a shift in the biological guard is occurring. You are witnessing a transition of shifts as rhythmic and predictable as your own breathing. Notice how the daytime residents of the reef have found their resting places. What's fascinating is the way the parrotfish, those vibrant, sand-creating architects we encountered earlier, prepare for their nightly rest. Within about 30 minutes of the sun setting, a parrotfish, such as the Times Scarus ferrugineus asterisk, begins a meticulous chemical process. It secretes a transparent, jelly-like mucus from specialized glands in its gill cavity. This mucus slowly expands, layer by layer, until it forms a complete, protective cocoon around the fish's entire body. Consider this as a biological sleeping bag. It masks the fish's scent from tiny parasites and helps maintain its internal osmotic balance throughout the night. It is a perfect, self-made sanctuary. As you drift alongside these sleeping fish, notice the polyps of the great star coral, asterisk Montastrea cavernosa asterisk. During the day, they were retracted, looking like small, stony cups. But now, in the darkness, a step-by-step unfolding occurs. First, the polyp increases its internal fluid pressure, causing its soft body to emerge from the calcium carbonate skeleton. Then, it unfurls its ring of translucent tentacles, reaching out into the water column. At this very moment, millions of polyps are doing the same, transforming the hard, rocky reef into a soft, feathery forest. They are hunting for zooplankton, tiny, microscopic animals that rise from the deep in the great nocturnal migration. It is a slow, silent feast that recharges the reef's energy while the sun is away. Your own body is mirroring this transition. Just as the reef polyps expand and the parrotfish settles into its cocoon, your nervous system is shifting its focus from the external world to the internal. The pressure of the water around you, that steady 2 atmospheres of embrace, is a reminder of the weight of your own limbs as they sink into your mattress. You are safe. You are held. Deep within the crevices of the coral, notice the green sea turtle, asterisk Chelonia midas asterisk. As it settles down for the night, it finds a comfortable ledge, wedging its shell under a thicket of staghorn coral to ensure it doesn't drift away with the tide. Once settled, the turtle enters a state of profound metabolic rest. Its heart rate, which might be 40 beats per minute while swimming, can drop to a single, solitary pulse every 9 minutes. This allows it to stay submerged for several hours on a single breath of air. Imagine that slow, deep rhythm, the long, patient wait between heartbeats. It is the ultimate expression of biological stillness. What's happening now is a demonstration of the ocean's own starlight. If you move your hand through the water, you might see a burst of tiny, electric blue sparks. This is the work of bioluminescent dinoflagellates, specifically Times Pyridinium bahamense asterisk. These single-celled organisms possess a chemical internal clock. When the water is disturbed, a signal travels through their cell membrane, triggering a reaction between a protein called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. This produces a cold, heatless light that lasts for only a fraction of a second. It is like a galaxy of underwater stars, reacting to the gentle surge of the sea, illuminating the darkness without disturbing the peace. As the night deepens, the chemistry of the reef continues its quiet work. Scientists have observed that even in the absence of sunlight, the process of calcification does not stop. The coral uses a sophisticated alkalinity pump at the cellular level. It actively moves hydrogen ions out of the space between its living tissue and its skeleton, creating a localized environment where calcium carbonate can continue to crystallize into aragonite. It is a constant, microscopic construction project, a slow-motion building of a cathedral that never takes a night off, yet never makes a sound. Consider the timescale of this growth. At this very moment, the reef is adding a layer of mineral that is only microns thick. It is a reminder that the most enduring things in our world are not built in a day, but through the patient, rhythmic accumulation of small moments. Your own rest is a similar process. Every minute of sleep is a brick in the foundation of your well-being, a slow accretion of energy and restoration that prepares you for the world to come. Notice the sound of the reef in the deep night. The snapping shrimp have quieted their intensity, replaced by the low-frequency thrums and booms of the Atlantic midshipman fish. These sounds are produced by the vibration of their swim bladders, creating a sonic landscape that is as soothing as a distant hum of machinery or the steady purr of a cat. This acoustic environment is the heartbeat of the hidden world, a signal that all is well, all is functioning, and all is at peace. Picture the marine snow once more, but now in the darkness. In the absence of sunlight, these organic flakes look like tiny, falling diamonds. They drift down from the surface, settling into the cracks of the reef, providing a midnight snack for the brittle stars and the sea cucumbers. This is the ocean's way of recycling energy, a perfect circle where the life of the surface nourishes the life of the deep. Nothing is lost. Every bit of matter is repurposed, reused, and returned to the cycle. Now, let the image of the reef begin to dissolve into the darkness of your room. The turquoise water, the vibrant polyps, the sleeping turtles, and the sparkling dinoflagellates are all becoming part of your internal landscape. The heavy, warm pressure of the tropical sea is now the heavy, warm comfort of your blankets. The rhythmic surge of the tide is the rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. You are no longer observing the reef. You are the reef, ancient, stable, and deeply at rest. The hidden world is closing its eyes, and so are you. The work of the day is done. The building of the stone, the filtering of the water, and the catching of the light are all complete. It is time for the long, slow quiet of the deep. As you descend into the final stages of rest, carry these affirmations with you, like the tiny larvae drifting toward a home in the stone. I am supported by a foundation as old as the sea. My breath is as steady as the deep ocean tide. I release the day as the reef releases the light. I am safe in the protective cocoon of my own rest. My body is restoring itself with every slow heartbeat. I am weightless, drifting in a sea of tranquility. The stillness of the deep ocean is within me. I am patient with my own growth. Like the coral, I am part of the magnificent rhythm of the natural world. My mind is clear and calm, like the sunlit shallows. I trust the silence to renew my strength. I am sinking into a profound and healing sleep. The stars of the sea are watching over me. I am at peace with the darkness and the quiet. Every cell in my body is finding its resting place. I am whole. I am still. I am home. The current is slowing now. The sounds are fading into a gentle, distant hum. The warmth is absolute. The darkness is a kind, soft velvet that invites you to let go of the last threads of wakefulness. The reef will be here when you wake, growing slowly, millimeter by millimeter, under the tropical sun. But for now, there is only the peace of the deep, the steady pulse of the ocean, and the infinite comfort of sleep. Good night.